presentation here and view reading view. Okay. I'm going to kick off this training. Thank you for the opportunity. And working with Meltem, that's a great developmental training for all of our members. I'm going to start the training, and Jim and I will present different parts of this training. My name is Burak Malkoc. For those who we never met before, most of you we met before and had a conversation. You know how job interviews might be nerve-wracking and stressful. Today, my friend Jim and I will teach you how to answer interview questions successfully and with self-confidence. We have several steps. Jim will start with the introduction in the next slide. And we recommend as much as you can take notes. It's going to allow you to start receiving the information into your mind. Jim, I go to the next slide.
Great. Thank you, Burak. Now, just to start off, how many of you had an interview last year or think you will go on one this year? Now, obviously, I can't see you raising your hands, but are there a number of people who might be doing that? No? Okay. Well, I know some of you will be, but one thing I'm going to let you know is that, believe it or not, most interviewers are terrible. They're not prepared. At best, maybe they've looked at your resume, and which is surprising because there are a lot of types of capital in the company, but human capital is one of the most important. Now, interviewing, the reason Burak, Meltem, and I chose this is because interviewing is just another communication skill. You're having an interaction with someone, and you need to be able to communicate. Now, you get in interview questions, some of them are just crazy. My favorite one is, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? And for those of you who don't know the answer to that, you would be a money tree. Uh, so, so again, you want to turn an interview to your advantage. You want to do really most of the talking. But what we're going to emphasize today in our training is that the best way to that companies evaluate people is that past behavior is the best indicator of future behavior. So a good interviewer is trying to get at past behavior issues. And we're going to introduce you to behavioral questions. And the thing is, even if the interviewer is not using a behavioral question, you can use this method to answer any question. And it's called SBO, situation, behaviors, and outcome. And actually later on, Burak and I will demonstrate that, and we'll actually swap and do some interview questions between us. And then we're going to ask if anyone wants to participate. So Burak, next slide.
Great. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
And in transition, I would like to share Jim had experience with this methodology, the technique, for more than 20 years. I use this to hire highly qualified candidates, and I use it myself to interview and win interviews of highly competitive job interviews. In the model that Jim had shared, situation, behavior, outcome, this is the heart of our program, of this technique. If you please imagine yourself in an interview that you will have, or any type of discussions, when someone asks you a question, there are three phases. So on the left-hand side, there's a prepare. You have to prepare yourself. Then you're going to be answering the question, and this is where we're going to be practicing more. And then stop, the last minute. Anytime you have interactions, you want to pause, stop, allow other people really receive the information you share, process, and if they have more questions, they're going to proceed with that. So on the
Mhm.
left-hand
Yeah.
side, under the prepare box, we want to make sure that the first one, to prepare for a good answer, you need to understand the question clearly, right? It makes sense. Then you have to think about, you have to develop the reflex of quickly thinking, what situation can I answer this question with? It's very, very important. Something that happened in your professional life or school or other circumstances. And the last minute of the last point of the preparation is that you have to give yourself a second to organize your thoughts and take a deep breath and be ready to speak. Then we're going to go to the middle section. One second. I need to get rid of this. I cannot see my screen. Oh, 1 second. I have to. One second. I have a problem with this. Okay, 1 second. This meeting is being recorded. I have to click things. 1 second. I have to escape. Okay, now I'm good. 1 second. I messed up. And here. 1 second. It's coming up. All right. It's coming up. 1 second. Okay, so we're looking at the middle section of my slide where you're going to be answering this question. The technique is that, as Jim highlighted, companies trying to find out your behaviors beyond your skills. How did you handle a situation with skills and behaviors? That's what they're trying to understand. That's why the first thing that you need to do, number 4, you have to describe the situation, but you have to be specific as possible. What was the company? What was the time? What was the location? What physical area you were? And then what is the problem that was being faced? I'm sure you can give more points to make it even more specific, but I gave you here a handful of uh, points to guide you. The next one, then you have to explain what you have done in that situation. But be careful, don't you say, we've worked on a project that was critical for the company and one Friday night. Don't go into we want you to say, to explain what you exactly have done, because that's why the important part, that the company is trying to understand what behaviors you have actually demonstrated, practice in the past, so that they can actually combine the skill set with the behaviors. And then that's how we know that companies are seeking qualified candidates. Finally, the number 6, always think about in business, what is the outcome? Either you save time, or you created a creative idea, innovative idea, or what type of dollars. So you help the project to deliver a new product, and therefore the company's sales have increased by so many dollars. Be prepared for that in early stages of your life, professional life. Maybe you don't know how do you impact your business, but believe me, companies are seeking for people who actually think as like a business strategist. What do you do? What role you play? And then how do you impact business? And at the end, number 7, the stop section, then pause. When you explain the dollars or the savings or the innovative ideas, then pause, look into the eyes of the interviewer, and make sure that you give them enough time for them to internalize what you said. With this, I'm going to turn it over to you, Jim.
Okay. Okay, we're going to give you a few examples of the type of questions you might get in a situation, in a behavioral interview. And these generally, as Burak said, deal with, tell me about a time when something happened. So here's an example. The first one is, and you can interpret this a lot of ways. Discovered you had something you had done had unintended consequences. You could translate this as tell us about a time you had to go tell the boss you made a mistake. Um, and then another one they look at and they want to look at how you can balance things is, describe a project where you had multiple deadlines and you had to balance things. How did you handle it? Again, very particular situation. I was working on a project that goal was to accomplish X. This is what I had to do with it. We had, a series of deadlines. This is how I managed them. So now the third one's kind of interesting because it's really an open-ended thing, but it works the same way. And it's your boss just asked you to go to lunch. What do you do? Because you don't know what he wants or he or she wants. Do they want to fire you? Do they want to promote you? Do they just want an update on a project? But it's kind of the same thing. You want to be ready with situations, what you're doing, and maybe not what the outcome is, but what the planned outcome is. But it kind of works the same way with something as open-ended as that. I want you to keep that in mind. So, Brock, let's move on.
In the next couple of minutes, Jim and I will role play. That means we're going to demonstrate uh, how to formulate a question and how to answer that with the model situation, behavior, and outcome. Jim, would you like to ask me a question and I'll
Sure, I
answer?
will. Yes. Here's one. Again, I'm the interviewer. Brock's going to pretend he's my candidate. It says, Brock, tell me about a situation in which keeping your coworkers or boss informed about key issues avoided the biggest potential problems.
Thank you, Jim. I missed the middle part of your question. Can you please repeat it?
Okay. Yes. Tell me about a time where keeping your coworkers or your boss informed about key issues avoided the biggest potential problems.
Excellent. Thank you. I remember several years ago, I was working in Denver. At that time, we were shifting and changing into a different computer system. During that process, we had an issue with our payment methods. In our business, we use oil, gasoline. So we had a supplier, and I discovered that that supplier was not being paid because we own trucks. The company owns trucks and deliver products to the customers. Gasoline and oil, this type of product were very, very important for us. I quickly ran a report and determined at what location, what dollar amounts were accumulating and not being paid. And I shared that information with my boss as soon as possible. He called me back. He said that because of the time difference, it was night where he was. Actually, he was in Paris, France, but he really appreciated what I've done. And then we saved the company from a major disappointment.
Okay. Very good. Now, Brock, I don't know, maybe what we'll do here is jump in since you very successfully answered that question and okay, just kind of review with it and ask everybody, and everyone just chime in. What was Burak's situation? Does anybody want to take a shot at that?
Yeah, please raise your hand or start talking.
Yeah,
We want you to ask questions so that your mind is connected with the content we share.
yeah, yeah. So what was Burak's situation? Anyone want to jump in? Okay, we're all a little shy this morning. Well, let's review. His situation was he discovered that some people, suppliers, or perhaps I'm not, and I wasn't quite sure of this, but
Yeah, I can assist with that.
or
Okay.
go ahead, go ahead.
Archie, go ahead.
Yeah, so Burak realized that they were not paying their suppliers.
Yes.
Uh, maybe they had an automatic system which was supposed to be paying their suppliers of gasoline and oil,
Very
which
good.
is a very critical material for their business. So by notifying the CEO or the boss of the company, they were able to get ahead of this problem and solve it,
Right.
and
Right.
by doing so, mitigated maybe
Yeah.
disappointment
Right.
by their suppliers. Yeah,
Okay. Let's take a step back. What was Barack's specific behavior in this incident?
maybe he was proactive, I can say, to try and solve the
Yeah.
problem
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
communicating.
Even more. Yeah. Even more detailed. If you remember, he wrote a report and detailed what was going on, and then sent that to his CEO or boss, who was able to analyze it and understand the problem better. And then, Archibald, you already said what the outcome was, that he wound up saving the company money and time. So uh, that's
And
situation,
if,
behavior, and outcome. Well
and
done. Well done.
if I may add, the behavior was that I found a problem using my skills. I ran a report, but I was proactive. I was not sitting and waiting for somebody to do something. I was taking action. Most of the business, that's why you can be candidate and get a job if you demonstrate that you're action oriented. Very, very important.
Okay. Rock, you want to test me with a question?
Yeah. Um, Jim, would you please describe a time when clients had a special request from the company, and as the sales manager director of the company, how did you approach to that request?
Mhm. Well, thank you, Burak. Surprisingly, this is a situation we run into quite often. Client calls in, special request. Um, what I do specifically in those circumstances are I have to look at the workload of my team. I have to see, and I'm going to evaluate how important a client this is, first of all. If it's a multi-million dollar client, I'm going to jump, but I'm going to evaluate the workload of my team. And if I have someone who's maybe a little bit lighter, I'll say to them, would you be able to jump this to the top of your list so that we can turn this around for our client? And hopefully their reaction is going to be, oh, Jim, I know that client. This is important. Yeah, I'm going to jump on that. And importantly, he or she's going to give me a time frame for when they can come back to me with an answer. And then I'm going to go back and communicate with the client and say, hey, we got your question, the report's in progress. I'm going to have that to you by end of business day today, and make sure that that works for them. So that's what I would do typically in a situation like that.
Great, thank you, Jim. For the sake of time, can we ask one person tell us what is the situation, what is the behavior, what is the outcome? That's what we're trying to get you in mindset to operate in that three-letter context. That's very, very important. If you like, I can go back here.